guys, welcome to today's video. Today I wanted to give you guys an update on IEW Structure and Style. We've been using it for over 6 months now, maybe longer. We're more than halfway through the first year's program, and so I wanted to do kind of an update video, share my thoughts on it, some pros and some cons, and just how we like it and if I plan to continue using it. So we started using IEW Structure and Style Year 1 Level A at the end of our last homeschool year. I had been hearing really good things about it, and I knew that I wanted to try it out for my oldest daughter, but the age levels for IEW do kind of range, so I also had my middle daughter try it out and just see if it was something that they could follow along with. I do have like that first experience video that I'll link down below, but just so you guys do know, there is a free trial of IEW. So that's what I did when I first tried it. It's a 3-week free trial. You get everything you need. You get the video lectures, everything, so you can really get a good understanding of how it works. So if you're not 100% sure, do the free trial. It's free. I mean, all you can do is lose time, really. So I do highly recommend that. So here's the binder that we use. We do use like the video lessons. So each of my kids has their own binder, and then they watch Andrew Poudwa teach the lessons, and each lesson normally is like 2 separate days of watching a video. I don't even know where my teacher's guide is. So you normally have a teacher's guide, but I don't even use it anymore, honestly. I did in the beginning. I used my teacher's guide a lot, but now that I use Homeschool Planet, I bought the lesson plan, and so all of the stuff I need goes right into my lesson plan. This curriculum is supposed to be over 24 weeks. Now, we started at the end of our school year last year, and the way we do it is we only work on it twice a week, so 2 days a week. So 1 week normally takes us about 2 to 2.5 weeks to complete. So doing it that way, it would take longer than a traditional school year. And this was not something I wanted to rush through, as well as it's not something I want to do every day. So we have found the rhythm where we break it up over 2 weeks, is normally how we complete 1 week of lesson. We have made it pretty much through 4 units so far, and there are 7 units total. So each unit kind of focuses like on a different technique, a different, I don't want to say style of writing, but just some like different ways to come up with writing. Now, what I will say is the IEW program is unlike any writing program I've ever seen, I've ever been taught. As someone who's gone through college level writing courses, it is a very different experience. The way that it teaches writing is not normal. I'm just going to put it out there. It does not follow any traditional paths of teaching writing. It is its own unique program, and that can either be a pro or a con depending how you look at it. Now, the very first unit, maybe the first 2 units, is you learn to make something called an outline, or a KWO, and there's a very specific way you make this outline, and then you learn how to rewrite a story from those outlines. So I want to say like the first 5 weeks for us, which was like 10 weeks, what my kids were doing is your kids get something called a source text, which is a story, and those first 2 units, they're basically learning how to make an outline of that story and how to rewrite the story using that outline. So they want to get as close to that story as possible. And so when your kids are doing that, there's really no creativity, I'll say. I mean, they're really just copying in a sense, right? They're learning to take notes, which I think is an amazing skill, but they're rewriting a story that's already written. So because that part was really stretched over the 10 weeks, I was just kind of in my mind, I'm like, is this gonna be working? I don't know. But again, this is a very unique program, so you do need to stick with it. Even though it kind of seems a little redundant, I think there's a method to it. Once we start getting into Unit 3, we're still retelling stories, but it's getting a little bit more than just like copying it. Your child still is presented with a story, but it's not so much they need to copy it. They just need to be able to kind of like retell the flow of the story, like the events that happened, And then there's always like the option like to find a similar story so your kid's not copying it. And so that's when I really started enjoying it. They got a good example of a story. So there was a story called The Little Red Hen, I believe. And this little hen had 3 little baby birds, and you know, they're all a little crazy, and there was all these other animals, and the little red hen needed a lot of help. She needed to make some food for her babies, she needed to clean up, I think, and in this story, these other animals didn't want to help her. So little red hen had to make a recipe, and there's like the steps of the recipe, and she kept asking for help and no one would help her. And at the end, she makes like this delicious cake. I really don't remember what it is, but she makes a cake and she feeds it to her little babies, but all the other animals who were ignoring her or not helping then cry out that they're hungry and want food, and little red hen's like, no. So anyway, so that's the story in a gist, right? Well, your kid could rewrite that same story, or they can make up their own similar story where there's a character who needs to do something, they are trying to ask for help, and you know, they're not getting the help, and so like, what's the consequence of that? So I liked when it starts turning that way, where you have the option. They can continue down kind of that more comfortable, safe path, or they can branch out, and that's where like that creativity. So it does come, it's just in a different way. So I really do think it's about building those like foundational skills, really understanding this program and what they're asking for. Every couple weeks, your kids are required to start adding certain things into their papers, and then that continues on throughout. So in, you know, the first couple weeks, they learn about something called an ly adverb, and you need to have an ly adverb at least in, you know, every paragraph, right? And then once they learn that and that requirement, that's required going forward. And so every few weeks, something else is added on like that. So they are building those skills, and I can see it now that we've done the program longer. It's just hard to understand that in the beginning. It seems repetitive. It's like, what are we learning here? But now that we're more than halfway through the program of this year, I really do see that benefit. Another side note that I really like about this is the stories are really fun that they're reading. There's both fiction and nonfiction stories, and they use a lot of, I want to say, there was some Aesop's fables in the beginning that were fun. Just, you know, common stories. Like there was a story of King Midas that my kids really, really liked. There's a lot of nonfiction stories. Like there was one about camels in there. And so I really like it too, because they're also learning these other things. They're reading these really good stories or like excerpts. They're reading these really good written papers. The vocabulary in them are really good. And in the lessons, the teacher goes through the vocabulary. Like he knows what words kids probably don't know, and he defines them all. He explains grammar rules. And so I love the video lessons. I love how he's teaching a class and we can see those kids asking questions, and my kids probably have those same questions. So I do really like all those aspects as well. What we're focusing on now, so we're about halfway through unit 4, which is summarizing reference. And so my kids are reading nonfiction reference types papers with lots of information in there, and they're getting into the world of like research. You pick a topic and you need to, you know, provide facts, how to kind of pick and choose information, because you know, he does a whole example on, you can Google, we'll say, beluga whales, and there's thousands of facts. Like, how do you narrow it down? How do you organize things? So they're teaching that, but then now they're also teaching like intro, topic sentences, wrapping up a paragraph, how to tie everything together. They're just doing it in a unique way, a very unique way than I've ever seen done before. So my kids are, you know, learning how to pull facts, how to make it sound interesting, how to, you know, really convey it to an audience. Another thing that I really like is each week of stuff. My kids, now that we're into it, they kind of know the structure, but you're doing rough drafts. I have to edit it. They have to type up a final copy. They have a checklist. So they're responsible for it. So when they hand me the rough draft, they need to have that checklist attached to it, and that's checking off all the things that are required in their writing. So like I talked about, they're required to put an ly adverb. They're required to write sentences that are either like with a who or a which. They have a list of banned words. So there's an entire list of words they're not allowed to use in their writing. They need to make sure that those words are not used. They need to make sure that they have, you know, a title on their paper. They need to make sure their paper is set up a certain way. So it does put a lot of responsibility on them as well. There's a lot of guidance for you as the editor. You're not there to critique them as far as like to come up with better writing ideas or to make things sound better. As long as they follow the checklist, that's all you're checking for. So it really is putting responsibility on them, building that confidence in them as writers. And I have seen really good, like strong improvements with both of my daughters. Their writing is detailed, it's more logical, it's written at a higher level, I think, than most kids that write at their age. They're using words outside of their comfort zone. So I really like all of that. Your kids are also responsible for keeping their binders. So in these binders, there's a bunch of different tabs of like how they need to organize stuff. We're not the best at that. That is actually like a skill. Like the first day I'm like, oh, this is easy. Like let's organize it. And it just wasn't that easy. So that is something that probably next year we will focus a little bit more on when they're older, is a little bit more of that keeping their binders up to date and how the teacher is expecting them to keep it up. We're just kind of trying to keep it all organized, but it turns into like a too long of a frustration. So that's kind of on the con end for us right now, is like the organization of the binder. There's just like a lot of sections. I feel like they're flipping back and forth a lot. So we're just doing what works for us. Sometimes another kind of, not con, but thing I notice is the videos. So it's one video per week, but it's normally broken into 2 parts. They're not always like consistent in the timing. First day of the video is normally like, I see it more common like 40 minutes long, 45 minutes long, and then the second video is like 20 minutes long. So I wish there was a little bit more consistency in the timing of videos, just because our homeschool days like to flow together. But it's not a huge deal. The only other thing, because the video lessons are teaching like an actual class, the teacher does go over a lot of the papers in the class. Like he reads the students' papers, and I do like that. And if it was just one, I think it would be good, but sometimes he does multiple. So my kids are kind of just sitting there listening to other people's papers for like 20 minutes. So that's something I really don't care for in the videos, but I do kind of understand the point of it. So just give and take. Overall, I'm really enjoying this program. It has really improved my kids' writing. I do see more of a engagement and improvement in my older daughter's writing, who's in 5th grade. I do think this program sometimes can go over my 3rd grader's head, and that's fine. 3rd grade is like the minimum recommended, but I hear it's better for 4th and 5th grade. So I don't hold her to accountable. She's doing good, but I do see much more commitment and improvement in my older daughter's writing, and it was meant for her, so I'm completely fine with that. I see the benefit for her. I see the benefit for my oldest, who is someone who really needs like that checklist. Like, these are the things you need, here's how you do it. She wants to really be told, what do I need to do? And she really excels when it's like that. My middle daughter, she writes papers on her own for fun. She writes books for fun. She reads a lot of books. She, I think, struggles a little bit with the confinement of it. So that is something else where I'm just a little bit aware of. Like, if she has this love of writing and she's more comfortable going outside of the boxes, I don't want this to like stunt that in any sort of way. So I do see, I have 2 different types of personalities using this program. I think this program is really good for a kid that needs the structure, needs more confidence, can follow directions, and is fine staying in that box and doing what they need to do and building the writing skills like in that safe way. Where a kid who may be a little bit more, I don't want to say that my middle daughter's more creative than my older daughter, because that's not true either, but maybe doesn't need all those guidelines. Maybe those guidelines kind of throw her off. She'd rather just, if I just say, hey, go write a paper on Antarctica, she's going to go and try to do that on her own. Now, she needs guidance for sure, but she doesn't like all the rules and the checklist. So that is something I'm very aware of, and I'm watching it kind of play out through this year. They're both doing good. I don't feel like it's doing anything negative to them, but probably my plan for next year is I probably am going to split them. I will have my 5th grader move on to year 2 of Structure and Style, and I will probably work on something different with my middle daughter, just to cater to their different learning styles. And that's just a personal choice of kind of how I want them to be. Now, this program, I do see us using it into middle school and high school for all of my kids. I think it's a very strong program. I like what I've seen in the older grades. I know that this right now is just building up to some of that stuff. So these are the types of curriculum and courses that I see us preparing us for higher level things, college prep courses. So I do see us using IEW for the long run. I just think for the younger ages, depending on the type of child you have, the type of learning styles they have, it may not be the best choice. So with all that being said, we like the program. I've seen the benefits of it. It's a very unique and different program, but give it time. There is that free trial that you can try three free weeks out. I love the video lesson aspect of it. It helps me as a busy mom of 3, but also a working homeschooling mom. It takes that teaching part off of me. I see us again using it long term in the future. Those are my thoughts on IEW. If you guys want to see maybe like do a lesson with us so you can kind of see like how it all flows and works, make sure you leave that down below in the comments and I will work on kind of filming that. If you have any questions about IEW or something I said as well, feel free to ask that down below. Thanks so much for watching today's video, hearing about my experience with IEW. I hope you all have a wonderful day and we'll chat soon. Bye guys.